It's time for the world to know of our presence. No more disguises, no mercy. The time has come for my master's arrival. Decepticons, mobilize. It is time. Decepticons, mobilize. It is time.
Oh, didn't see you there. Hey, Jake from Full Access UTV. Today we're going to talk about the KRAKEN Part 2. Yeah, I have spent a lot of hours in that seat. You got to test pedals, steering wheel, steering column, this and that, and those seats are extremely comfy. But today we're going to talk about the KRAKEN and pretty much where we're at today. A lot has to be said. At this point right now, I have about 3 weeks to try to get this thing done and have it on the lake bed at King of the Hammers. I have no idea if it's going to happen. There's an insane amount of work to do. I'm trying. We deal with business, we're dealing with everything else. But so we were talking about making this video, and what is step 2? I don't know, it's hard. With fabrication, each thing seems simple, could take you 4 hours, 6 hours, 2 hours. It really adds up in time. It's not interesting for video. But in the end, we thought, hey, let's bring it back. Everybody's kind of wondering, hey, where did that chassis start? Why did you guys do this and that? How'd you tie the frame sections together? That's been the questions that have been coming to us. So we thought, hey, I got a lot of pictures from it, so why not talk about the pictures? And so that's what we'll do. We'll do a little catch up, talk about the pictures of where I started from. All right, so pretty much this is the Solidworks file of the chassis. It's pretty much the same as our Wraith 2, just different door bars and different boat sides and the width in the bottom. Changed it up to match the KRX. From the beginning, I've always had my chassis CNC bent and notched, laser notched. This particular time, I went to pick up 2 chassis and I rented a rental car in LA and just threw them in and drove it home. Those guys were thinking it's pretty funny, but the 8-hour drive, I made it. This is our jig assembly for putting the chassis together. Makes them nice and square. Never any question if a tube's in the right spot or when you measure something, it's right. But everything fits in the same jig as the Wraith 2. No issues whatsoever. It was nice to be able to keep the front end. That was one of the big concerns, if I was going to be able to do that. These are our swing open doors, or as Wyatt's favorite thing, the boxer droppers. Something a little different than the rock buggies, but as you get older, you need these. As I mentioned, you need. We made 2 chassis, so the other one's just sitting here. And this is our KRX 1000. This is what we were starting from. It had 9 miles on it. We built a cage for it, and then started to tear it apart. As you can see, a lot of people have never seen one gutted. This is what it looked like. This is where I started removing everything, getting it down to the bare lower chassis, which I wanted to tie into the Wraith 2 chassis, as you can see. Start cutting off the pieces and sections. By the way, I have a ton of good 9-mile parts, guys. If anybody needs anything, let me know. Aluminum roof, did a bunch of bead rolling. In the end, everyone's like, it looks like the Decepticon. Wyatt started that. I thought, man, that's hilarious, but turned out real nice. It's got brake lights, tail lights, and our race lights, chase lights and everything. Get the link mounts in there. This is where the rear section was kind of tied in to the main chassis. Gives you a little idea, and you can start seeing me setting the motor in and the motor mounts. One of the things I had to do is fabricate my own motor mounts. I couldn't reuse the bars coming off the KRX, and the motor mounts in the KRX are fine, so I just made new tubes and made new mounts for them. Worked out real well. Mocking up their rear suspension, just starting to figure out where everything's going to sit, including spare tire. Obviously, I knew I was going to run a spare for racing purposes, and it's basically a rear bumper too. Now this is rear shock mounts. A lot of people ask, how do you know you're setting the shock mounts right? Basically on the KRX, we set it at at bump and set the CV shafts at 0 degrees. Measured center to center to shock mount, and then built those rods. We measured a degree forward, width, everything else, and this is the KRX shocks in the exact location as they are on the KRX. This is the rear radius rod mounts. They're bending on the guys who are really beating them up and racing them, so I put in some supports. I got those available too if anybody does need those. Sway bar was a big issue. I had to lower it down and move it, so I fabricated all new mounts for that too. We also did double shear on every single sway bar mount, and that means you put a piece of metal on the outside to also capture it so that it doesn't shear the bolt or shear the ends, but we did that front and rear as well. This is that hidden cooler mount I talked about in the last video. You can barely see, but this is the actual cooler that sits in there. Locks in awesome, and it'd be used for any time we're doing trail wheeling and don't want that weight of that spare. This was the start of a big headache. Did a bunch of weld washers to the front, but one of the biggest things about the front, and this one picture is this car sat here for a week. You have to move this front section forward, back. I had to put the suspension at full bump, at full droop. You had to make sure the tires didn't hit the chassis. It also dictated the wheelbase of the car, and it was, you had to nail it. It had to be right the first time. It also dictated how the front of this car was going to look, depending on where the lower chassis met up, and if I had to change even the front of the KRX parts. But in the end, it worked out. It worked out really well, actually. So I think the next pictures will kind of show me tying it in. Actually, well, there it is. It's tied in. This is our first round of upper shock mounts. This was the one Walker shock I got for pretty much a test mock-up. I only got one. And you can see tolerances are super tight everywhere. This is cutting off the front section of the KRX to add the hydraulic steering. Pretty much this is your pedal section and everything. I've cut it all off and about to fab the hydraulics. Wasn't good at keeping a ton of pictures, just trying to get stuff done. But there it is, 2.5-inch hydraulic steering ram. Pretty much 1.5-inch, 250 tubes, bracing it to AR450 steel plate, so it's good. This is a Walker with springs on it, showing full droop. You can see the clearance between the A-arm and full droop is super tight. And this was after a new upper shock mount, so we knew it wasn't going to have any issues hitting anywhere. And you can see the clearance just even in my steering ram mount. Everything clears just enough, and that's pretty much the way it is in a race car. Of course, added the awesome Corbeau seats, super comfortable. Glad I got them to fit. Used the KRX adjustable passenger grab handle. Was also able to use the tilt steering column. Took a bunch of fabrication, and simple things like this, people think, man, that's cool, but man, something like this, 3-4 hours putting time into it to do it. But mock-up of the fuel cell. Kind of showed that in the last video. These are the new front shock mounts. Those were also in the last video. And this pretty much brings us to where we are. Fuel cell's done. Welded. You see the little triangle plates? Those are actually those little gussets. Had a tank split before, so that keeps it from doing any kind of splitting. And these are your lower cradle mounts and your upper cradle mounts. All right, so that brings us to where we are today. Done a ton of work. So much time into this thing. The little details, man, I'm a details guy. Everybody knows that. I have put a lot of little details into this thing, and a lot of them are in this interior. I have got so many hours into the tank, everything else, and so now we're going to kind of show you where we're at in current time of what we're getting done. For starters, you guys can see, got the shifter all in and done. I actually used parts of the KRX, so I am actually retaining the factory shifter. This is the 4-wheel drive switch in our custom switch panel. So I pretty much got 4-wheel drive lock, Lots of switches. I'm going to end up labeling these and clear coating this, but this one's your horn for siren horn. This is siren tone 1, siren tone 2 for racing. Got ignition, start, pretty much your headlights. You got your LED lights up front. This one is going to be the sway bar disconnect for the rear, and these two are going to be race related. So these will be my all my chase lights, and this one will be pumper. So that works. Oh, and hidden in here, you wouldn't even be able to see it, is the winch switch, but I'll just have up and down right here on the winch. And you can see I tied in all the KRX gauges. I pretty much got the tablet up here. That way we got maps, we got music and everything else, and even one of those things here. 12-volt hidden power port. We need to charge anything. Got another one hidden inside that is gonna pretty much charge up the tablet while we're running. A lot of cool things. Come and check out this side, Wyatt. I'll get out of here and start showing some things. Actually, see, this is going to be our emergency brake. As I mentioned before, we're going to ditch the factory rear calipers with the e-brake. This is a hydraulic ball valve, and pretty much I'm just going to turn that on, and that'll lock all the pressure into the rear calipers. And be a nice e-brake. Tilt wheels there, everything works. Ended up turning out really cool. We're really happy with that. I'm going to say a lot of ums. You know what I'm saying? So you also notice too, brake pedals are finally in. Got everything kind of set in there. I said it again. So right now I'm clamping the brake pedal because I'm about to do the floor underneath it. So I'm trying to show where it was at the most when I fab it in. But as you can see, the brake pedal's in, the gas pedal's in, the throttle positioning sensor's all tied in. I even at the bottom kind of hid in a whole throttle stop too, so I can't break the cable or anything. All the steering's in, steering shafts are done. Going to the servo, going to the steering rack. Steering rack's all mounted, and it's even fully braced on both sides, and it pretty much moves everything. Here, kind of go to the center and I'll show you. But everything's kind of working. We got 1 3/4 a turn, so it's going to be nice and quick. And with the hydraulic, it'll be totally strong. Lights, I'm sure you can see up there. We got the lights all mounted up front in here. Got 2 front mounts lights up here. So kind of sleek, kind of hidden in there, not too gaudy, but definitely bright enough being all LED and everything. One of the other things too, I guess to talk about is that tank. So on the tank, you guys saw the mounts on the table, and here they are. The one cradle on the bottom is supported up to keep the tank in here, and then this is the upper clamp, and everything right now is tacked until I disassemble to make sure everything works. But got the breather valve with the rollover, so you can shut it off for the rules. But that worked out really nicely. I think that's about an 18-gallon tank, and until I actually fill it, I'm not really too sure yet. But what else show you? Got so many things done. I got a battery. I'll show you guys the battery mount. I gotta adjust that door. Made a battery box. Got the battery all hidden underneath. Got a little distribution block under there. So it keeps it real simple. Plus, if I need to jump the car, with a chassis like this, you really only need to jump the hot side. So I twisted that hot side out so you could access it with some jumper cables or whatever if you needed to, and then you hit the ground side in the chassis kind of anywhere. Got the racks. Sway bar mounts, you notice in the front too, didn't do any pictures of those. I got the sway bar mounts are all double sheared now, and that's even the sway bar disconnect pretty much, so it just kind of mounts it up to the chassis. So if I'm not running the sway bar, we can do that. I got a cool idea for doing a front suck down winch. So if anybody's familiar with rock crawling, you know you kind of suck the front end down with a winch and things, or a lot of people run a limit strap. So when you climb in vertical, the car doesn't unload on you. Same thing going side hills, whatever, so on and so forth. But in UTVs, I mean, these things they go from ride height to full droop. You know, even in our entry video, you see me coming up off the top of that thing, off the top of one of those hills, and I'm three-wheeling, you know. And so with a suck down winch, I'll be able to just keep it at ride height. So I'll suck it down to ride height hits, and then go hit the walls and climb. So it should keep me at an angle going up, instead of trying to unload me more as I go up. So it'll still 3-wheel, more than likely, but it's going to be much more controlled, which is going to be really nice. What else? Haven't done much to the rear. Still waiting on shocks to come for the front so I can finalize welding on everything. Just been doing bits and pieces, lots of bits and pieces. You know, steering is all in and assembled. One of the things to talk about too is, you know, your tie rod mounting points where your rack used to be. This is full hydro. So the way it works, no matter what, the suspension geometry and steering geometry was correct. I had to match it. So everything I did, I had to put those tie rods right back at the exact same spot as stock. Matter of fact, Wyatt, if you want to show the picture, this video, you can kind of see it coming in and out of there. But that point is the exact same matching point as the factory rack, which is vitally important. That way you don't get bump steer, you know, you don't get, when you land, jump, full droop to full bump, steering doesn't do anything weird. I nailed it. It was a ton of work to do it, but that swinging rack mount actually worked out really good. So I'm looking forward to testing that. As a matter of fact, one of the parts to talk about too, this is another piece I finished up. You'll see on the rack mount, up here there's a piece of Delrin, and I custom made some bushings. So it keeps that rack mount that's tied to that ram from swiveling front to rear. That way it doesn't pivot, doesn't do anything weird. Also noticed too, did a nice rear A-arm support kit too, just in case of any damage, tie them together. But what that thing does is the whole rack mount coming off the rack pivots from front to back if it wanted to. I mean, it's just a hydraulic ram. So that Delrin and everything just kind of keeps it locked up and keeps it stationary. So it can't roll, it can't move, nothing can move around, and it works out really well. And by going to a system like this too, if you notice with the rack, me and Ross went back and forth about how to do this and to be safe at speed. I talked about it a little bit before in the other video. By doing the rack with the hydraulic, I have manual steering that's fully controlled right now, as you can see, but I have hydraulic assist coming through the servo. So I'll have the power hydraulic steering, but I'll still have that manual control of a rack, which it just makes it so much safer, and you feel much more confident knowing the car's not doing weird things and shuddering around. And if it is, you've got it in your hand. You got the steering wheel in your hand. So if there's any second guessing, steering wheel's in your hand. As before, when I was running hydro systems at race speed, if the car was doing something, you still just really weren't sure. So that's a big factor. But that kind of brings us, I guess, to where we're at today. It's getting there, bit by bit. I'm trying. I'm trying to get it on the lake bed by hammers. Man, I'm not going to make any excuses, but there is a ton of work to do. Got quite a bit of aluminum sheet metal work to do. Fab out all the panels everywhere. Do all the bead roll and all that. And I'm basically the stage right now is I'm going through all the fab work. I'm trying to get all the fab in everywhere and tied together. And right now I'm doing the front. I'm going to go to the rear. I'm waiting on pretty much the radiator kit, tie the intercooler together for the supercharger, and I'll build everything and try to do all the fab. Then the thought is to disassemble the car in sections. Rear section, front section, but the motor, everything's got to come out of this car in sections and then be painted and then be reassembled, and maybe even more, not maybe, there'll be more fab to happen from then, but then it's much easier. You don't have to worry about overspray and all that kind of crazy stuff. But I don't know. That's where we're at. Kind of shows where we're at. Want to say again, thanks to my sponsors and everybody, and thanks to you guys for watching. We're gonna definitely try to keep more videos coming, but dude, it's hard. 3 weeks, man, until I'm supposed to have it on the lake bed. Can I do it? I don't know, but it's hard to even get time to do this. You guys can't see this shop. It's trashed. It is trashed. It is 7 days a week right now, 10 to 12 hours a day. And we're doing our best. So anyways, I want to say I appreciate you guys. Thanks for being the customers. That's it, man. Oh, wait. Please click that like and subscribe button. I'd much appreciate it.